Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Brock the Collector here, coming back to you with another video. Today, we are going to finally be doing the Marvel Legends Reflection series for the Guardians of the Galaxy figures. So we're going to be covering all of the movie figures that I got from Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. Last time we did Black Panther, I believe. And so yeah, this time we're going to be talking about the Guardians. So I'm excited to dive into these guys. But of course, we can very quickly go over the Cosmic Rewind 5-pack because I was, waiting to do this video. I mean, the Guardians of the Galaxy was always going to be the second Reflection series video entry, but I didn't have a Drax to talk about with you guys, and I just figured that it wouldn't be complete without at least a Drax to go over. So now that we got all of them here, or at least all the main characters at least, we can go over their appearances. So of course, this is the Drax from the Cosmic Rewind 5-pack. Drax is a very good figure. They haven't released a Drax on a different body mold yet, but this is still a pretty good one. There are two Draxes. Well, there are three Draxes now with this one. There's the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 one, this release, and of course, the original Guardians of the Galaxy one. And Drax is just it's a pretty good figure. There's great texturing on him, great sculpting. Last time I did the Reflection series video, I had taken the figures down, but the Guardians are just too all over the place on my shelf. It would be too hard to do. So yeah, hopefully on the next one I'll be able to take them down and give you guys closer looks. But of course, we just looked at these guys last week, so there's really no reason for that. There's the Rocket, Gamora. Gamora's a really good figure. We're gonna be going over the Gamoras today. But yeah, there's the one that we just went over last week. I love the texturing on her. I love the Rocket especially. Look at the fur on that guy. Pretty good looking Gamora figure, of course. We talked about her last week. Oh, and just some other things that we got to get to before I can dive into some figures that I haven't talked about. There's also the Cosmic Rewind StarLord and the original release of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 Gamora right over there. Looking pretty good. If they can focus on her. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Pretty good figure. All right, so now we can finally talk about some new guys. Let's start with, what you say we start with Mantis and Yondu first. So Yondu was a figure of a character that was actually in both Guardians movies, but Hasbro did not release a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 Yondu figure. But they finally did get around to releasing Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and they were actually able to give him two distinct looks. So we have one head here that can give you the look sort of from the end of the movie / the final battle, where he has the new sort of fin to control his arrow. And then, of course, you have the first sort of head, which is a more original Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 appearance look of him. But both looks are really good for Yondu. Yondu, of course, is a very nice looking figure, very good texturing. Got that Ravager suit. You can see the Ravager sort of emblem right there. The Creed. It looks really good. Got a trench coat going on. It's got sort of a flowing move with this trench coat as well. I like that. The blue skin looks pretty good, and we got a nice Michael Rooker. Michael Rooker is his name, right? Yeah, I believe so. Michael Rooker face sculpt up there. This is sort of when photoreal was starting to hit, so kind of looks like him. It looks actually a lot like it. Like, you can see the sculpt is there. Got some scarring around him. Yeah, it looks really good. And you can see some of the differentiations of the paint up onto the fin right there. Look really good. Like that. And of course, Yondu was released in Wave 1 for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but there was, of course, a Wave 2, and that was the Mantis Build-A-Figure wave. Now, that was a pretty controversial decision to have Mantis be the Build-A-Figure of that wave. I had believed that there wasn't another Build-A-Figure that was sort of regular size. Usually people were getting pretty used to the idea of Build-A-Figures being large characters. I believe the smallest Build-A-Figure before her was like Hitmonkey, which, to be fair, that's like another level of small. That's like almost Rocket small. And that was a while before that. So people had just thought that, any days of really small Build-A-Figures was gone. But then, of course, Mantis came along and she warmed everybody's hearts with her inclusion as the Build-A-Figure of the wave. There was actually Nilo from that wave was supposed to be the Build-A-Figure, but due to some circumstances that I had once knew the cause of, but now I don't know anymore. But Nilo was changed to a single release figure, and Mantis became the Build-A-Figure of the wave, which made her pretty annoying to track down. But then eventually, at some point, the wave had started to hit like 5 and belows. I remember I'd gotten most of the wave back then at Burlington Coat Factory, if you guys know what that shop is in the United States. I'd gotten most of those figures for like $8 back then. So that's how I made some pretty good headway on my Mantis and didn't actually finish her until earlier this year. I kind of regret not getting the rest of the figures at Burlington Coat Factory right then and there, but then again, just didn't have the funds for it at the time. Even $8 a piece, I was still only able to snag the Gamora. So yeah, damn shame, wasn't it? But still, this Mantis is a really good figure. Love the texturing on the Mantis. This Mantis, it can sort of go for really any look that you want her to go for. Mantis hasn't had a lot of costume variety in the movies as of yet. You know, she's had her Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 appearance, which is where she made her debut. And, you know, she's basically been rocking the same look for Infinity War and Endgame, or at least a very similar look, as you can see on the costume there. I believe it wasn't until Thor Love and Thunder that she actually got a new outfit. Come around. The texturing on her is really nice, like all the way. You can sort of see it. Really does look like a leaf. You can see her sort of like leafy skirt there. She has a very nice metallic green on the torso and everything. And yeah, Mantis, that's just a cracking Build-A-Figure. You can see even the head sculpt looks like Palm Clementif. Very nice. Yeah, I love the hair on this figure especially. Even though it is longer hair, the way that it sort of like flows whenever you twist the head is very natural looking. One problem that people have had with this figure, though, is the antennas. You know, oftentimes the antennas can look very warped. I mean, I just heated mine up and gotten them to straighten out, so I like how they look. If they were ever to redo this figure in, say, like the Legacy Collection line, one thing that could be cool is if they could take her antennas on top of there and add like sort of a bluish glow on top of them to sort of imply that she's actually using her powers. But other than that, pretty good Mantis figure. I mean, I like it. It represents what it's supposed to. And moving on from there, StarLord. This is the Guardians of the Galaxy Mantis Wave StarLord with the Guardians of the Galaxy 2-pack, Ego 2-pack StarLord head on top of there. This was one of the best photoreal applications in the line when photoreal was just being implemented for real, for real. This is, as you can see, just look at how much better that looks than any one of the Chris Pratt likenesses before that. Of course, this particular StarLord, the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 release of StarLord, we had seen the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 StarLord like 4 different times now. You know, we have this trench coat version, and then they released the jacket version 3 separate times. Of course, with the 5-pack, and then you had the 2-pack, and then you had the single release in the first wave that came with Yondu. But it's a good figure, though. This figure came with some really good accessories. It came with, of course, his elemental blasters. But on top of that, he also came with the little teeny tiny... I have it on his belt there, so you can't really see it. But he came with this teeny tiny... Oh, actually, my StarLord figure from Thor Love and Thunder has it. His cassette tape, his Walkman. I shouldn't actually have this with this StarLord, because Ego broke it, didn't he? Yeah, I'll probably change that one of these good days. But yeah, this figure was really good. The only thing that this figure didn't come with was actually the StarLord helmeted head sculpt. You had to get the separate StarLords for that. So they kind of incentivized the reason for you to buy each one of the StarLords back then, so that you wouldn't just take one and done. Even though I had one and done of the StarLords for a while. You know, I had just had, for the while, the trenchcoat StarLord was actually my only StarLord up until I got the 2-pack about a year later for cheaper. And Nebula, that was the first Nebula in the line as well. I don't even think that they've done a comic Nebula, if I'm being honest. Yeah, so that is the first Nebula, isn't it? Yeah, she's a pretty good figure. Head sculpt, as you can see there, looks enough like Karen Gillan. Keeps on wanting to focus on StarLord. looks enough like Karen Gillan, you know. It's not fantastic. The eyes are a bit too black, if you ask me. Nebula probably should have some more expression in the eyes. But other than that, I mean, yeah, it's a pretty good figure. I've said texturing a lot, but really the sculpting on these figures is just amazing with the Guardians, because, you know, the costume design in those movies is no joke. And with Nebula, they did not spare any expense. You can even see some sort of black, like oil and blood on her torso as well. And you can even see the lines on her arms. From here, I can't tell whether those lines are painted or they're sculpted on her arms, but they might actually be painted. They could be sculpted, though. Usually they sculpt stuff like that. She came with her gun, and she came with an interchangeable arm as well, so that you can have her sort of like plugging into the ship like how she did in the movie. So that's pretty cool, if you ask me. Beautiful. Moving up here, got Ego. This is, of course, the 2-pack Ego. Ego, Kurt Russell actually came with 2 different head sculpts. So yeah, he's a pretty good figure. I mean, he's not a super duper inspiring villain in figure form. There's not really any other way to do them other than this. I mean, of course, I guess he could have done the, what was his name? You could have done his skeleton version, I guess. All blue skeleton figure. That could actually have more implications outside of just the Legends line. But as it is, it's a nice looking Kurt Russell figure, man. I like that. Of course, Gus from the Foosh. That is the most known use of it, at least in the action figure collecting community. But it's a really good figure. It's a good figure as it is. I mean, I don't think it made it into any top 10s, but it was really nice to start getting some actual MCU villains, which is something that we'll actually get into because it's something that they've actually been doing a better job of as the line has been going on. But yeah, so these are sort of our main Guardians here. This is our Guardians team. Now, of course, we're going to be moving into some villains. So we take a trip up here. Oh, really, before that, let's talk about this Groot and Rocket. So this is the 3-pack Evolution Groot with Rocket from I believe that is the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 Rocket that was released, you know, single released in the Mantis wave. So, oh, and that's also the Gamora gun from there. So I like this figure a lot. I think it looks really good. I love having Rocket on top of Groot there. You can see it just looks like a combo. Even though these two were never together in these costumes, these specific looks, it looks really good having them together. Of course, I just talked about that Groot figure last week, but still, that Groot is one of the best sculpts in the line, which makes sense why they've used it so many times. But it's really good sculpting. It was one of the best Build-A-Figures for a little bit. And the little baby Groots that they've thrown in with these figures is really nice, of course. And this and the Plant Pod Groot are not the only ones. They also, with that Rocket figure, they had included this little fella. This is a baby Groot in the Ravager suit. The eyes on this one are more scary than the other ones, though, if you ask me. Yikes. But other than that, really good Groot figure. But talking about the villains, we're going to be taking a look at these guys up here. So, in 2019, there was an SDCC exclusive set. It was the Collector and Grandmaster set, which had included a Grandmaster figure that we were just about to get in a follow-up set. That Grandmaster with the smiling head sculpt. It had the exact same body and everything as the Grandmaster that they were about to fully release as part of the 80th anniversary program for the Marvel Legends line. That was the summer program in 2019. But at the same time, they had changed up the head sculpt. So they had something to make the figure desirable. But then again, it was like we hadn't even gotten that figure yet, and we were just getting another one. But the main reason for them to release that set was to push out this Benicio del Toro collector figure as based off of his appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy 2014. And that figure had actually come with 2 separate heads. So one thing that had made this set very desirable was that the Hasbro team claimed that due to likeness rights and everything, that they were unable to make any more Benicio del Toro figures based off of, like the collector, which was very confusing to me because Black Series had just done one a year earlier with their DJ figure from The Last Jedi. So it was strange, but this figure actually looks a lot more like Benicio del Toro than that figure ever did, if you ask me. He came with two head sculpts, this head sculpt and a unmasked head sculpt. You know, I actually call it unmasked, but it really is more of just a goggle-less head. But as you can see, look at the hair on that. Look at, like, the paint that they use. It looks like a creamy color, but in real life, yeah, it's sort of a creamy-ish white that they used on the hair. And as you can see the eyes, they even got some of the eyeliner there. They got the little chin stripe that he had. Yeah, good looking head sculpt. But as for the figure itself, Benicio del Toro's figure was actually an amalgamation of some different body molds, or actually just one body mold with some new sculpted pieces. So it of course had Chameleon's legs, or that actually looks more like young Nick Fury's legs because of the amount of, or it might just be Chameleon's legs, I don't know. People, I can't really tell anymore. It's too many freaking body sculpts, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it had a chameleon variation of legs with chameleon arms seemingly on the, oh, actually no chameleon arms, but it did have chameleon hands, I believe, on both sides. But the upper torso seemed to be completely new sculpted. I had not seen that anywhere else. And it had that sculpted, his sculpted like beads around there. And it had some really good pieces. The only other accessory it came with other than the head was that orb, which I believe is the same orb that came with the Guardians of the Galaxy figures back in 2014, I think. And his cape was new. Of course, it was a plastic cape, but they had made it to look like that fur, some more texturing on there, and it looked really good. And I really like the goggles head sculpt, as you can see there. You can sort of see how they really did some precise painting with the goggles. And really brought them to life like that. As you can see, the head sculpt, the goggles head sculpt, of course, still does have the cream hair. And yeah, it looks really good. And speaking of villains, well, the collector isn't really like a villain, but he's not a hero either. He had actually set out to collect all the Infinity Stones, but then again, we set out to collect all these action figures, so who are we to judge? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, Ronin the Accuser though, definitely a bad guy. Ronin, the Guardians of the Galaxy movie was his first appearance, but chronologically his second appearance, as he had appeared in Captain Marvel, which took place before. But this was a really anticipated figure for a lot of people because, as I said before, not a lot of movie villains were being made. Of course, whenever a movie came around, you were lucky to even get the full ensemble of protagonists in that movie. You were at least guaranteed the main hero. So if it was a Captain America film, you could at least rest assured that you were going to get a new Captain America figure. Or if it was an Iron Man film, rest assured that you would get several new Iron Man figures. But you really never knew about the villain. I mean, I remember hearing about people celebrating when Age of Ultron, when the Hasbro team had announced that they were going to do a fully new Ultron for the Age of Ultron movie. And, that was just such a big announcement because people hadn't actually, they weren't used to getting the villains. Of course, they were complaining, like in 2014, how the Winter Soldier didn't have many of its villains. It didn't have an Alexander Pierce, how Iron Man 2 didn't have a Mandarin released, even though or Iron Man 3 didn't have a Mandarin released, how Iron Man 2 didn't have a Whiplash. It was just getting frustrating to have all of these heroes and none of the villains. So they had finally amended that with their 10th anniversary program and released this Ronin figure along with several other movie villains. And Ronin was a pretty good figure back then. The eyes were good, the face was good, all of the paint and everything was nice. Only area where it really lacked was the articulation sector, especially when it came to the head, because one decision that they had made was to have the shoulder pads actually connected to the hood as it came down there, which had done a lot for the aesthetic portion of the figure. But as for the functionality in terms of articulation whenever you wanted to move his head to the side or his torso to the side or his arms up or anything like that. It sort of crushed that. And I love how Star Wars and Marvel have created a more seamless, a much better way to engineer these large shoulder pads, because that is seemingly a staple of a lot of Marvel costumes are the shoulder pads, because shoulder pads can be menacing. They can make or break the silhouette that a character sort of establishes, and Ronin definitely had some banging shoulder pads, as you can see there. And yeah, it was just a shame that they had, designed them quite poorly. But other than that, I mean, the articulation on this figure was fine. It had the double jointed elbows, double jointed knees, and everything. The texturing, as I've said with all of these figures, was really good. Take a look at the more intricate sculpt as you get up in there. The metallic-y grays that they used, it really just contrasted well, and it looks really good, especially when you come up to the eyes and everything. You can't really see it from here, but the figure does have like some purple veins running through the face up in there. You can kind of see them in between the black stripes. You can see the purple veins, sort of to show that, he has the power of the Power Stone flowing through him. And it was a really nice figure to finally have. It really definitely gave ACBA shooters somebody to pose against their Guardians of the Galaxy heroes. And his weapon was really good too. Look at the texturing on that. I once knew what that hammer was called, and now I do not. When I played Future Fight, I used to know what that hammer was called. You guys know the Future Fight game? I used to know the name of that. Damn, now I don't remember. But yeah, Ronin came with it, and it just looks really good. One of the reasons why I like Ronin is because, or why I was excited to get this figure, was I remember like Ronin when he was about to kill everybody on Xandar. He had said, like, his speech was just so fire. He was like, "People of Xandar, the time has come to rejoice and renounce your paltry gods. Your salvation is at hand." He had said some stuff like that. And even though the way that I said it sounds corny, it was really cool to see him say all that stuff. And he did like this Kree war cry chant, and it just made me want this figure so badly. And then, of course, he got clapped in a singing competition, a dance-off. Unfortunate that he had to go out like that, isn't it? And I figured I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the two Guardians figures that we got for the Thor Love and Thunder movie. So, of course, we had gotten Teenage Groot and StarLord. This is the StarLord from Love and Thunder with I believe that is the 5-pack helmeted head. And so, yeah, those two. Two random choices of Guardians to get from the Love and Thunder movie. They could have gone with any two Guardians, but I guess it makes sense to go with these two. They look pretty good together. And in the context of your Thor section. So yeah, Hasbro has done a great job with their Guardians of the Galaxy movie line. Only reason why I feel like Guardians are so hard to get your hands on is because of the discrepancy in terms of, movies and sequels, especially for these guys. When you really put it into perspective how long it has been ever since these very popular, IPs have gotten sequels. I mean, of course, Spider-Man gets one every 2 years, like Sony really doesn't let Marvel budge on Spider-Man release dates. Every single 2 years it has been on the dot with Spider-Man. But as far as, Black Panther or Thor, or even, maybe not Thor, but Black Panther or Guardians of the Galaxy, you've had to wait a pretty considerable amount of time. And of course, some of that is quarantine and everything like that. COVID, but also I think it's just, maybe you have a lot of projects going around and you don't have a lot of time to focus on some of these other characters, which is unfortunate. But I figure now is the greatest time as any to talk about some Guardians to celebrate their new movie that is heading out to theaters within the next, how many months until next May? 7 months. Wow. In the next 7 months. But up until then, we have plenty of great stuff to look forward to. And who knows, if they announced a Legacy Collection line, I'm sure that would excite a lot of people to finally get another chance to get these figures, because they are really great. So, rating all these on a scale of 1 to 10. Let's go. Whew. Let's go. So, I'd give Drax a 7. I'd give Mantis an 8. This 5-pack, Rocket, I'll give him a 7. Plant pot Groot is a 7, I guess. What do you call it? This is Yondu. Yondu's pretty good. He's like a 7. Gamora 7. StarLord, this sort of StarLord kit bash. It's unfair to rate the StarLord figure alone because, you know, this is sort of a mix of two different figures, but I'll give StarLord like a 7, 7.5. Nebula back there, she gets like a 6. Her head articulation isn't super duper great, but of course she is also 6 years old. So, Ego, I'll give him a 6. The Collector gets a 7 because I really love the colors on him and the detailing and everything. Ronin gets a solid 6, 7? 6.5. Cosmic Rewind StarLord gets a solid 6. And Gamora, the original release from 2017, gets... I'll give Gamora an 8. Maybe a 7. 7.5. Evolution Groot 3-pack gets an 8. An original release Rocket gets a 6. But yeah, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy movie line. I think that they're just some great figures. Tell me, which one of these are your favorites? Were there any that you were super excited to get? Did you get the line when it first came out? I wasn't collecting Marvel Legends back then, so I didn't have it. But I had seen them because I used to collect Black Series at the time. And I do remember seeing these figures back then. One thing that I had wished that they made is what do you call it? One thing that I had wished that they made, it would have been cool if they made a Sylvester Stallone. You know, maybe it was hard to get his license for that, but that would have been really cool. It would have been cool to get some of the Kree, were they Kree? Oh, some Nova Corps troopers as well, or even some, what do you call them? You guys remember from What If those like aliens that fought StarLord, T'Challa, and Yondu? Yondu with like StarLord, T'Challa had told them, "A Ravager never flies solo," and you know those alien guys. And now that reminds me, they should have definitely made a Korath. But if you asked me personally, I'd rather have Korath in his Kree Star Force look. But other than that, yeah, great movie figures that they did for this movie. And tell me what are y'all's favorites. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully come back when we talk about Wakanda Forever. I believe that will be the next video because my Namor, Shuri, and Everett Ross have shipped from Entertainment Earth. I rarely ever order from them, but you know, they're coming through. And I believe I'll have that Atuma completed soon, hopefully. If I can get those 2 comic figures, I'll have that Atuma completed and we can finally talk about the Wave. But for now, I just tossed her next to my Stan Lee, you know, just for now. She's a really great figure. I like her a lot. Yeah. Pretty cool looking. But yeah, she's definitely going to go next to the Black Panther people. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe out there. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye.